And our first speaker is Dr. Matthias Hammer, who first came to Explore as a student, organising an ethnopharmacological, thank you for that, that's really great, ethnopharmacological medicinal plants to the Amazon. He is the founder of citizen science and wildlife conservation NGO Biosphere Expeditions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. But anyway, can we do some sport to start with, please? Can everyone who's at Explore for the first time get up, please? Now I look into a lot of young and some older faces, but the young faces, you know, that's me 33 years ago when I was here at Explore as a student setting up an expedition. So you are the future. Please sit down again, thank you. And Felicity talked about good advice. And one thing that Shane said to me when I was here, she said, you know, if you don't write up your results of your expeditions, you might as well have gone on a holiday. And that's at the core of what an expedition is. It's travel with a purpose. And yes, you might be traveling with a purpose, but if you don't write it up and share it with the rest of the world, then it's just your own experience, then it becomes a holiday. So I want to pass this piece of advice on to you, because if it hadn't been for that piece of advice, then I probably wouldn't have the honor of standing here today and giving this talk. And my talk today is about citizen science and wildlife conservation, and that's what I call the collecting stamp principle. Because actually in wildlife conservation, what we do is we collect stamps. And for an NGO like the one I founded, Biosphere Expeditions, actually that's a good thing. Because I can't, even these days, I can't ask a computer to count or a satellite to count how many snow leopards there are in this valley in the Tian Shan. Or I can't ask a drone, an underwater drone, to look at what fish species still live on a reef. You need bodies on the ground collecting stamps. And the beautiful thing is that I can teach you within a couple of days on how to do this. I can teach you how to fill in a data sheet. I can teach you how to use a GPS, how to drive a 4x4, whatever. If you pick your activities properly, then good science comes out at the end of it. So that's the collecting stamps. That's where we work all over the world, or have worked. This is some of the expeditions that we have today. So you see something like in the Tian Shan, that's the snow leopard expedition. There's one in Thailand just as we speak. We've just come back from the Maldives, and our scientist is sitting here in the audience listening to us. And what do we need to make a successful expedition? Well, there's 4 basic ingredients. One is inspiring species. And sometimes as a biologist, because that's what I trained at, that kind of makes me a bit sad, because you need a sexy species to get people excited, you know, to get the grant money, to fire people up. But often that's how conservation works anyway. So you get the snow leopard, or you get the panda, or whatever it is, and then you get up the protected area at the end of it, and then all the creepy crawly that nobody's interested in are protected as well. You need meaningful tasks, and that's what I'm going to be talking about in citizen science. You need decent logistics, and we've heard yesterday about this already. And you need money. You need funding. But let's concentrate on point number 2. This is the academic word for sexy species. So you need charismatic megafauna. So cats work, that kind of cat works. Anything that's like predatory with fur works. That works. Elephants work, you know, they inspire people. And if it's pretty and beautiful, that works. That's a reef in Honduras. And then you add to this the citizen science bit. And the citizen science, as we've heard, you don't need to be an academic to be able to do this. And this is one of the great empowering movements that have been around for the last 30, 40, 50 years. And I'm happy that Biosphere Expeditions has been part of that movement, because you can do lots of things as a layperson. looking for tracks, the camera trapping. Someone needs to change the battery. Someone needs to change the SD cards. Someone needs to climb up the mountain to place it. You can do the data entry, record behavior, photo ID, but first you have to get there. And sometimes, that might not be so easy. This is in the Atlantic rainforest of Brazil. This is getting in a traffic jam in Namibia. Or we try to be very scientific on that expedition and place the camera traps in places that the computer decided for us. But in the end, we just spent all day digging out cars when we were trying to get to those places. So we adapted the methodology a bit. She's counting the time between blows of a whale, because that's a stress indicator. So all you need is a stopwatch, someone taking the time, and the other person noting down the data. She's looking at oryx bottoms, because oryx bottoms are, they indicate how well fed they are, how well the population is doing, and there's some very easy ways of classing how big the bottoms are, and you just need someone to look at them. No computer can do it, and then just write down the results. She's meant to take a photo of the fluke because, of course, the flukes are like fingerprints, and you can photograph animals in certain places and trace their routes around the planet that way. But she's getting a bit carried away in the moment. And then you have very scientific methodologies such as transects. Transect sounds very scientific, but actually it's just a line somewhere. And it doesn't even have to be a straight line. So it can be along that ridge, and you just walk it several times, many times, and then you do some statistics and you find out, do you have species there? How many? What's the density? That's the sciencey stuff on the side. But for getting the data, you can use citizens. Or the transect can be underwater. So it's a 100-meter tape measure. We dive along it and we record what we find. In terms of fish, in terms of invertebrates, in terms of coral species. Or it can be in the snow. Or it can be on the beach. It's repetition. It's not location, that too, but also repetition. That's often how citizen science works, and that's why citizens are great at doing this. Then you have to record the data. You have to place camera traps. You have to listen to whale vocalizations, or you have to do old-style telemetry, or you do really basic stuff like track traps. You play in the mud, you leave it there, you look what's walked through. Or, and this is a key point here, local people are your citizen scientists too. So if you go out on these expeditions, make sure you talk to the community. They will know where the animals are. They will know where they mate, where they feed, where they rest, where they do whatever they're doing. So use local knowledge from those citizen scientists as well. Or, you involve professionals as citizen scientists. So this is obviously a male leopard and a local vet who's taking some blood samples. Or you can do trapping and trapping. Sometimes you get close to the animals when you do this trapping. This is a very rare sandfox. That's our scientist there, was very excited when we caught it. Or you do this measuring, tagging with turtles. Or on the beach in Australia. This one was in the Azores. This is in Australia. Or you measure the hatchlings before you put them back in the seas. It's all stuff that citizen scientists can do. Or you collect eggs that this leatherback turtle is laying, and then you take the eggs into a hatchery and guard it, because otherwise, so that the poachers don't get at the eggs. And that's another job that anyone can do, guard the hatchery 24/7. Or you work with local communities. So this is a poster we've produced about Arabian leopard, dispounding some of the myths that are around. Or we work with local schools. Believe it or not, this is in the Mara in Kenya. These guys, they live next to the Mara and have never been inside, just because they lack the money, they lack vehicles. And you should see the faces when these young school children, we take them into the Mara and they see an elephant for the first time in their lives, or a lion. And then we talk about jobs in conservation and how they can become citizen scientists as well. And then on our expeditions, we always have a placement program. So we invite local early career scientists to come on the expeditions and experience and learn with us. And we've had some gems coming out of this. So the Jean-Luc, person on the left, is she the one who's now works for Blue Marine Foundation? Yeah. So the person on the left, Shaha, she was a placement, and now she works for the Blue Marine Foundation in the Maldives. And we've got many stories like that. And then talk to local people, as I've said. Interviews about where the snow leopards are. You know, what have the snow leopards eaten? Have they taken any of your sheep? Where are they? And so what comes out at the end of all this? Make sure that you get results. Make sure you write up your results and make sure that you make the world a better place, as we've already talked about. So the press always asks me, oh, what's the latest data you discovered? And then I have to tell them, well, it doesn't work like that in conservation. It's over multiple years, but that was a quick result. The government in Poland asked us, can you do a survey of how many wolves there are? Because we think there are 150, and then we can shoot 50 and sell the licenses to some rich Germans or Americans or British to go and shoot them. The biologists thought we only have 50. We came in, we did a 3-year project to find out, and we said, you've only got 35. So no hunting licenses were issued. That's a quick result. Here in Arabia, we work very closely with the reserve managers. That's a kind of in the ideal world situation where they give us a job, look at oryx bottoms or capture some sand foxes. We do that 1 year, and then the next year they tell us what else they want to do us, because they can then use the data that we collect to implement changes. And that's the ideal world. Sometimes it doesn't work like that at all. Sometimes you're not listened to, and that's something that you have to accept. But the chance of you ending up like this is much diminished. And I'm looking at all of you who are planning expeditions if you make sure that the community wants what you want to do. Gone are the days of colonialism where, you know, old white men like me go in and tell local people what they want. No, you've got to go the other way around. You know, what is it that you want? And then organize your expedition accordingly. And then you get this. You get declaration of protected areas, and often declaration of protected areas that are not just paper parks, because they're carried by the community. And we've done this in the Altai Republic, in the Ukraine, in South Africa and Australia, and Oman, the Maldives. And we've had wilderness protected. So one project we had is a dam wasn't built because we helped the local communities gather the raw data so that they could make an argument. Look, we've got 5 monkey species here. We shouldn't build a dam and put this area underwater. And we've also helped. Eventually, we want to make ourselves redundant. So we've helped train local rangers in Kenya, for example. We've done that for 3 years, and now they're running the project themselves, and we move on and do this somewhere else. So since I'm 6 minutes over, I'll call it a day. Thank you for your attention. I hope I've given you some idea how citizen science can work and how you on your expedition can make sure that you employ citizen scientists, and how you on expedition make sure that what you do is wanted by local people and the community. Thank you.
This is our opportunity to ask you some questions. So remember, and the first question that's come in is a question that I had. So if you are a citizen, that you're putting together an expedition and you're collecting some data, how do you find a scientist that is going to use that? How do you find a good home for that data so that it doesn't just sit on a shelf or sit on a page on a website?
It's a good question. We nowadays have the luxury, they come to us. But when we started and nobody knew who we were, I used my contacts and I actually used the RGS database of field centers, which I presume still exists. So, you know, look at that. And there will be scientists there and you will also have a base in an ideal world where you can run your project. And make sure, if you can, that they're local scientists or that they're intimately involved in what happens in the country.
It's kind of linked to another question that I had personally. There's been a lot of discussion in the press about the rise of what they're calling science tourism this sort of thing. If you see a project that want people to join it, how can you make sure that this is a good project that's following good best
I know exactly
practices?
where you're going. And rightly so, because there's lots of charlatans around in this volunteering field these days. When we started at the turn of the millennium, there weren't many. And now there's just this proliferation of gravy-trained bastards who want to exploit the fact that people want to do something other than lie on a beach with their holidays. So at the worst end of the scale are the blood lion projects. You might have heard of those. In South Africa, there's, for example, lions that are raised for hunting. And some clever bastard in South Africa came up with the idea, why not exploit these fresh-faced young people, pretend we're bringing these lions up for conservation, and make some money while we raise them to be shot for hunting. I mean, that's at the one extreme end of the scale. But to answer your question, we were very involved in when this started to be a problem, and rightly so. So if you go on just type in Biosphere Expeditions website, and then under campaigns, there's top 10 tips. And that exactly tackles that subject. What should you look at? Look at, is this a non-profit organization? Do they publish their results? Do they have achievements? Or do they just show you pictures of people cuddling lions and, which you shouldn't do anyway, yeah? Less contact, more data. So it's those top 10 tips that you should really look at if you're thinking of joining a volunteering project.
And then there's a question about what is the relationship between citizen science and open data digital platforms? So I guess this means, is there a distinction between a citizen science project that you're just contributing the data that they're asking for, if you happen to be going to a place where you can do that, versus, collecting your own data and then making that open access for anybody to use?
Not really, because, the citizen science, there's been this absolute proliferation in citizen science. And I remember at the turn of the millennium where we're laughed at a bit sometimes, by scientists as, these people don't know how to collect data. And that's virtually gone these days. So whether you use your computer to look at some stars or, there's so many areas of getting involved, or just donating your computer time. You can even do that. Or whether you go out on an expedition with us and get your hands dirty, it's all citizen science. So it's such a massive field now that really I don't even want to box it.
And have you got any advice for people that want to find those projects? They're willing to get involved. Is there a good place to start to find the resources to link up with those citizen science projects?
There's Responsible Travel. That's a website, which is a portal website. If you type into the internet volunteering, and lots of things will come up, and then if you compare that with our top 10 tips, then I'm sure you'll find the right experience. And there's for all ages and all budgets, and there's something for everyone. No, the RGS also has a database. It's a list of organizations. Yeah, a list of organizations. Raleigh's on there, for example. We are on there. Earthwatch, and if they make it on there, then you can be sure that the RGS has given it their stamp of approval for quality.
Well, Matt, thank you very much, and thank you for your patience with being a little bit late.
That's all right. Who's next?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.